Welcome, everyone. My name is Roxane Maranger, and I'm currently the president of ASLO. And I would like to begin by acknowledging that my home and university are located on unceded Indigenous lands. The Ganiyage Nation is recognized as the custodians of the lands and waters on which I sit. Shoshone, or Montreal, is an island city historically known as a gathering place for many First Peoples, connecting voyagers from many places by its surrounding waters. This is meaningful in many ways to me, particularly as the president of ASLO, as our purpose is to connect people all over the world through their interest in water. In fact, the purpose of ASLO is to foster a diverse international scientific community that creates, integrates, and communicates knowledge across the full spectrum of the aquatic sciences, which makes it very unique. It also wishes to advance public awareness and education about aquatic resources and research, and promote scientific stewardship of aquatic resources for humanity. As such, we fully endorse the efforts presented today. The Diversity, Equity, Inclusivity, and Justice Forum and Amplifying Voices webinar series. Many thanks to Ajit Subramaniam, Camille Gaines for conceptualizing and initiating the forum, and to Brittany Schuyler and to Paul Kemp in sort of logistically creating it, and to Leslie Townsell for creating so much of its content. And she'll share with us today how we want to embrace populating that information with all of your different knowledges. I'd also like to thank the Early Career Committee, who was given the charge of creating the Amplifying Voices series and have really run with it. I'm very, very grateful to everyone for their very, very hard work. Globally, there has been a call for scientific societies to acknowledge and actively dismantle the systemic ways in which Black, Indigenous, and people of color and other historically excluded groups are marginalized in STEM fields. ASLO acknowledges that the scientific community has a history of racial inequality and implicit bias. Further, our efforts to promote diversity and build inclusivity while core values of our society are far from complete. I've also had the opportunity to have conversations with people who have come through ASLO from underrepresented groups who have struggled to feel completely welcome over time. And I hope that together we can all work to change that. Our ultimate aim as a society is that all members can feel completely welcome and comfortable in such a way that they can flourish by bringing their authentic selves and full creativity to our science. Our organization, as well as our science, would profit from greater equity and inclusion to unleash greater creative potential for all, but also in how we engage on a more human level by being more conscious of those injustices. Water belongs to all of us, and understanding and protecting the Earth's fresh waters and oceans needs everyone to feel completely welcome in participating in this critical work. So ASLO is actively trying to find mechanisms to bring about transformative change, and we need everyone to participate in this task. It is truly a time of awakening. People from all over the world are truly connected to place in their water. We have so much to learn from each other, and I believe the ASLO DEIJ Forum and Amplifying Voices webinar series represents an opportunity for the broader aquatic community that ASLO serves to share valuable information and create a more open and welcoming society. So I thank everyone who is present today and all those who participated in its organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rox. And, I would really like to acknowledge Rox's absolutely rock solid support for DEIJ activities within ASLO. She has gone way beyond the responsibilities of a president in my eyes in making sure that ASLO is an inclusive society and is welcoming of all people. Thanks, Rox. Leslie, if you're ready, you can take it over.
Good morning. Let me just share my screen really quickly. Okay, can everybody see my PowerPoint? Fantastic. Uh-oh. You guys see it? Okay, there we go. All right, welcome to a special session of Amplifying Voices, Early Career Researchers Making Waves in Aquatic Sciences. Today, we are going to be introducing and taking a virtual tour of the ASLO DEIJ Forum. Let's see. So my name is Leslie Townsell. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the DEIJ intern and the forum moderator. I'm currently a graduate student at the University of Georgia studying the impacts of climate change on oysters. This inaugural internship started in April of 2021 with the goal of creating the DEIJ Forum. So be on the lookout if you're interested in being the next DEIJ Forum moderator, because applications will be opening soon. So the forum is a virtual safe space that is moderated to facilitate conversations among ASLO members on how to create a more diverse and inclusive aquatic scientific society that fosters a sense of belonging for all. Additionally, we hope that the forum will allow members to share their resources and communicate how they as individuals and as part of their professional institutions are creating these safe and inclusive and diverse communities. And we do this in order to share kind of what works and what doesn't work in creating these spaces. So currently the forum has job opportunities, articles of interest, events, and so much more that subscribers can take advantage of. And I will get more into detail on that shortly. So why is the forum needed? Racial tensions grew worldwide in 2020, ranging from the murder of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd to the NSARS protests in Nigeria, and the reignited protest of the death of Adama Traore, a young Black man murdered by the Paris police in 2016. These racial tensions led to an increase in sensitivity to not only racial issues, but issues that all minoritized groups encounter. For example, 2020 was by far the worst year for transphobic violence. I say this to say that diversity is all encompassing. So I want to know how you guys define diversity. You can go ahead and drop it in the chat. Feel free to come off mute, turn your video off. I want this session to be interactive. So if you have a definition of diversity, give it to me because I want to put all of them together for you. Anybody want to drop it in the chat?
I'm a slow typist.
Okay, we've got some great ones in the chat. So I'm going to start reading what you guys have put in the chat. We've got variety, differences in self-ascribed identities, sustainability, multiple backgrounds, all feel comfortable and ideas welcome, representation of different identities and lived experiences. These are all great. Belonging, people of different ethnic and racial backgrounds, worldviews, sexual orientations, gender identities. These are great. Wow. I'm so proud of you guys. These are really awesome. Did you guys read the forum? Did you read the DEIJ entry in the forum? I hope so. Well, these are all great answers. And what I'm understanding overall is that diversity is the variety and inclusion of people from these various underrepresented and minoritized backgrounds. How can these minoritized backgrounds be categorized? Oh, we have another one, adding to Rox's comment, ableism, yes. So how can these minoritized groups be categorized? Go ahead and you guys can start putting that in the chat as well. Don't be shy. You guys had some really great answers the last time around.
Leslie, I guess I'm not quite sure what your question is, how to categorize people?
Yeah, so what are the different categories of these minoritized groups? Like what kind of categories do you have of them? So a lot of people focus on race, but there's also others. And I know one of them was put in the, a few of them are put in the chat already. Like somebody said, Rox said racial backgrounds, worldviews, sexual orientations, gender identities, age structure, ableism. ethnicity, socioeconomic background, nationality, first language, socioeconomic status, culture, nation, race, ethnicity, education, background, gender, abilities, economics, education. These are really, really great answers. I mean, you guys kind of just took the words out of my mouth, religious views and practices. Yeah, and that's just to name a few. There's so many ways that these can be, first generation. There's so many different categories that these minoritized groups fall in. And a lot of the times, people will actually extend beyond just one category. They'll actually be in multiple categories. So this forum is not only about diversity, but it's also about inclusion, equity, and justice. So we know that the E in DEIJ stands for equity. Can you guys give me a definition for what equity means? You guys can drop it in the chat or come off mute. Access to what is needed to succeed. Equal opportunity. Providing the same opportunity, correcting for bias. These are fantastic answers. Yeah, so it's basically equal opportunities for all, the fair and impartial treatment of all of the aforementioned groups that we just went over. So what about inclusivity? What does that mean? Feeling like one belongs and is welcome, recognizing and valuing diversity, accepting people as they are, creating safe spaces for people to feel welcome and be their authentic self, taking part fully, acceptance. These are all really, really good answers, everyone. Openness, proactive seeking of inclusion, welcoming. So yeah, inclusivity is basically providing that equal access to opportunities and resources to all of the groups that we mentioned before as well. And what about J? J is for justice. So what do we mean by justice? Feel free to add it in the chat. Being accomplices and standing up for the rights of those that minorities are discriminated against. Yes, I love that word, accomplices. We don't need allies, we need accomplices.
We sure do.
Ensuring that inclusion is achieved, that bias is recognized and corrected. That's a fantastic answer. So justice is also the act of removing barriers that prevent the groups from participating equally and fairly. Accountability for injustices. Oh yeah, that's a big one. Fair treatment for all. Fair treatment without prejudice. So 2020 led to an increased sensitivity among institutions, many taking a closer look at their DEIJ practices. ASLO created a safe space to promote a meaningful change in the community through the implementation of the forum. Why is a safe space so important though? So a safe space allows people to show up as they are with no judgment from their peers. Additionally, our safe space is moderated and we have a code of conduct that all users must abide by in order to show respect for all. So this is a reminder that anyone can see the forum, but only members that are logged in can post, which I will demonstrate when I take you guys on a virtual tour of the forum. Oh, we got one more answer. Equal doesn't mean the same for all. I love that. Okay, so in the forum, you guys, you all will be able to find a code of conduct, events in different regions, scientific articles about DEIJ, jobs, fellowships, internship opportunities, definitions to commonly used terms, a resource library, and you can even start your own topic. So I'm going to walk you all through this in just a few minutes. And reminder, the forum is open for everyone to view, but only registered ASLO members with a profile can post by signing in. So have you all subscribed to the forum yet? Have you posted anything? Not quite? That's okay. The forum is going to be up forever. So there's plenty of time to join in all of the fun and stay up to date on discussions. So make sure you are subscribed. Follow at ASLO_org on Twitter, and then follow the hashtag ASLO_DEIJ to highlight the discussions to the broader scientific community. I'm sorry, broader aquatic scientific community. And then you guys can also engage with me, your trusty moderator. If you are unsure about your login information for this next step, please email Paul at webeditor@aslo.org, and he can assist you in retrieving your login credentials. And then remember, the ASLO elections are happening soon, and you will also need those login credentials to vote. So now I'm going to lead everybody over to the forum and show you guys what it looks like logging in, and when you're not logged in, as well as when you're logged in. So I'm going to do another screen share. I'm going to stop screen sharing right now. And okay. I've lost my cursor. Here it is. Oh, I'm going to give you guys the link to the forum one more time, just in case, and that will be in the chat. Okay. Okay, so you should see the ASLO forum on this page, on my screen share currently. At the top, you're going to see diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. Can everybody see my new screen share?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yep.
So as you see here, I'm not logged in because it says login/register. So this is what you can see when you are not logged in. It's just going to have our welcome right here. You'll be able to access the code of conduct, the DEIJ resource library, as well as the community contributed resources thread. There's just a couple of rules right here outside of the code of conduct that we really wanted to highlight for you, and some more resources. So you'll also be able to see the topics. So if we go to the environmental justice topic, you'll be able to see a few posts. There's about 3 posts right here that you can see in this. But as you can see down here, I cannot post anything. It's asking me to sign in. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. And now if I scroll down, I can post something. So if I take you all back to the DEIJ homepage, I do want to walk you through a few things. So if you click this link, you will be able to access our code of conduct. This is a code of conduct that ASLO has in general to help us all be productive members of the aquatic science community. If you go over to the DEIJ resource library, you can see different websites, different consulting agencies that you could possibly use, blogs, as well as online articles. And then there's one research article listed here. One of my favorite things, I might be a little bit biased, is the Black and Marine Science website right at the top. So you guys can go ahead and explore that and click on the different links in the ASLO DEIJ resource library. And I hope that it's useful for you if you guys would like, in addition to the library, or if you all have suggestions on anything else to include in the library, please go ahead and start a topic by entering the title right here, and then entering this anything that you want to type about the topic. And if it's something that you would like added to the DEIJ library, just go ahead and put that down at the bottom. This would be a great resource to add to the DEIJ resource library, and we'll get that added for you. So we do have a few posts outside of what I've posted. We had a post about society membership. This is the one of the first posts that I did, DEIJ, what does it mean? And what I did was I broke down each of the letters and then I put them together kind of using a metaphor. Does anybody have any questions so far about the forum?
No, but it'd be great, Leslie, if we could capture some of the collective intelligence exercise you did today and post some of that into what does DEIJ mean? Because this is kind of a collective exercise and you asked all the questions. And so now we have some community responses. So it'd be really great if we could do that.
I just saved the chat. So let me
Right. So it's all there in the chat and the whole thing is being recorded. So we'll be able to send a link to that as well. You include the link as well.
I saved the chat. So hopefully I can get that copied and pasted and reformatted to get onto the forum for this week. Community contributed resources. This is where I would love to see participation from everybody. Oh, there we go. We've got some great community resources. Ajit posted an article about code switching. Brittany posted this article about changing the culture of the coastal ocean and marine sciences. So these are some really cool articles that everybody can read and take advantage of. There was also some posts in here about, I guess, how to write a better letter of recommendation for those people that are in minoritized groups to make sure that you are really playing on their strengths and you're not just using these adjectives that are kind of general for everybody. If nobody has any questions, I'm gonna go ahead and stop screen sharing. Does anybody have any questions?
I guess I'll just jump in with one comment, Leslie, which is to sort of really emphasize that the point of the forum is to, where relevant and where possible, have a many voice exchange. In other words, this is not just information going in one direction, but hopefully there'll be some engagement where you actually are able to have a dialogue with people.
I would love for participation on the forum from everybody. I would love to engage with you all and really interact with you guys and have an open discussion about all of these topics. I would love it if you would post on the forum. You can even post on the forum about today and give a review of the session today if you want. But I would love to engage with everybody here on the forum in the safe space that we have created. If there's any questions that you guys may have that you might not feel comfortable like putting out there, just feel free to ask them. Yes.
Leslie, this is really nice and really comprehensive, and I'm certainly going to go check out the how to write a better letter of reference. One question I have, just speaking for myself, I'm not very active with social media. I don't even have a Twitter account, and I would be passively using this. So I would read it vigorously, but I wouldn't be really posting. And I wonder whether there's a potential downside that it looks not very active. Might it be worthwhile like somehow revealing how many people access this, or having some kind of a counter, or maybe I'm certainly not standard, and maybe there will be vigorous debate, and that's not a concern. Just throwing it out there.
I think that was a concern for us in the beginning, that not many people were accessing it and posting. When we went into kind of like the site visits from the different emails that go out to ASLO members and stuff, we did find that the forum was being accessed quite a bit and the different pages were being touched on. So I think a lot of people have that same mindset. They're more passively looking at the articles and taking advantage of them, and maybe they're not quite comfortable posting it. Which is why we really want to emphasize that this is a safe space and you can feel comfortable posting. Yes, Rox.
Here we go.
Oh, you're on mute.
Unmute yourself. Fabulous. Thank you so much, Leslie, for accompanying us through the forum. And I think just perhaps something I'd invite people to maybe post in the chat as we need to switch over or soon is, perhaps ideas for other things we could maybe try to compile through the forum. And I think there's already some really, really great stuff there. And I agree with you, Leslie. We're getting lots of traffic passively, which I think is fabulous. And it's interesting to imagine how can we do this to make it more engaging. And so ideas around that too, please communicate with Leslie and with any of us so that we can make this grow into the future. But one thing I'd love to see our community put a bunch of information on decolonizing, content for education. I know a lot of us are thinking about this, and I think that would be just a fabulous addition where we really could gather resources from our collective community.
This is Ajit. I apologize. I'm on a really bad internet connection, so I keep getting knocked out. But I just wanted to pick up on one piece that was there, which is we really hope we would have an interactive sort of a discussion group going under any of the topics. But if nothing else, please use this as a way where you can get resources to make change in your departments, in your institutions, and post what works in your institution so that others can learn from it. So even if we don't have, I shouldn't say even if we don't, I hope we have a rigorous debate about various things, but if nothing else, please use this as a good resource library for advancing the cause of DEIJ. At 30 minutes past the hour, maybe we'll just see if others have any comments, and if not, then we will move on to the next speaker. One of the things that we realize about the forum is that it often makes people shy. And so hopefully, even if you hesitate speaking up, you might have a chance to sit down and write about what it is you hold, what you're thinking about. But at this point, we shall move on to Anwesha. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning, good evening to everybody who's joining in. And I hope my audio is clear to everyone. And today I'm going to be talking about a little bit of science, and then I'll try to stitch that up to DEIJ. So my name is Anwesha, and I'm currently doing a postdoc in India. And I put my Twitter handle. It'll be great if people can tweet during the talk and we can keep the conversation going. So today I'm going to be talking about an ecosystem that's very close to my heart, because this is where I have been working right from when I started my PhD. And this is the Sundarbans. Just to give you a brief idea of what it really is like. This is the biggest contiguous mangrove forest that's there in the world. And I have pointed here in the red that you can see in the world map. That's where I am located currently. And down south of India is the Sundarbans, and it covers an area of around 10,000 square kilometers, and it sits on the Ganga Brahmaputra Meghna Delta. And of course, I mean, I'll be walking you through all of the closer aspects of why this ecosystem is so important. But the primary reason why this is very important is, of course, owing to the increasing importance of the mangroves in protecting the coastlines. And at the same time, the GBM is the second largest source of fresh water to the world's oceans. So moving on, as I already told you, that this ecosystem is shared by both India and Bangladesh, and I work in Sundarbans. And this is what it really looks like. We have a core area, which is a Ramsar site and a World Heritage site. So there's a lot of focus from the government in trying to keep this ecosystem in place. We have a buffer zone that's very close to the international border. Then we have a wildlife sanctuary where a lot of the monitoring and research work really goes on in trying to studying the ecosystem. And what is very fascinating about this place is that there are 7 major estuaries that drain from the north to south, and we study these ecosystems as extensively as possible. So why is there like a buzz within the biological community for studying the Indian Sundarbans? And I have shown some pictures here. The biodiversity is huge. It's one of India's top biodiversity hotspots. And you can see that we have a huge population of herbivores, of course. We have the Gangetic dolphins, which is right now vulnerable, and we're trying to revive the population. We have a crocodile rescue center where we try to breed them and we try to keep the population going. But of course, if all of you would be knowing, this is the place where the world's only swamp tiger lives, which is the Royal Bengal tiger that is there on the top panel of this slide. So it's all very pretty, but what's really going wrong with this ecosystem is that you can see that we are seeing that the environmental effects or the rapid climate change that is happening is affecting this ecosystem much faster than we had originally predicted. And we are losing huge portions of the coastlines. We're being hit by cyclones every now and then. We have 2 to 3 super cyclones hitting us in the year. And what happens is that you can see that how much ever effort we put in trying to keep this ecosystem in place, the river flow is washing away a large part of the coastline, which is affecting the lives of the people that live in this ecosystem. And what happens is, so this is one of the sites where we work. And maybe you visited it just before the cyclone and you go back and you can no longer see the land because it's being washed away. And this is, as I said, it's directly affecting the lives of so many people living in this ecosystem. So a lot of the research that we are currently doing on the Indian Sundarbans fits into the UN SDGs, and it's a basic mandate with the funding situation that we do research that fits into the global perspective, even if it's research that's just trying to add fundamental information into the global literature. And we try to focus all the work which fits in primarily into these 4 SDGs that's there, which has been proposed by UN. And India is very, very committed to meet these goals by 2030. So when it comes to research, this is the kind of boat that we have in the Indian Sundarbans. Looks luxurious, right? If you are working, you're on this boat for as long as you're doing field. You don't have a land that you can dock in, that you can go get down in, because all of this is very highly protected tiger land. So you cannot just get off on wind. This has very basic facilities. You can sleep, you can eat, you can have a basic washroom, but it has no electricity. You have to depend only on a solar panel, which supports you and which can possibly only run your phones. There is no phone network. You have access to a satellite phone to report back if there's an emergency. All good, but this is not the boat that we work on. This is the boat that we have to work in, because the big boat that I showed you does not get into the small creeks in this land. And if you're on a big boat, it's docked somewhere onto the major line, and you hop into this one, and then you try and get into the creeks, sample, and get back as soon as possible, because again, these are tiger lands. And if you're there for very long, you will for sure run a risk of being attacked at any point of time. So this is the context in which research is happening in the Indian Sundarbans. Now, so we recently completed a field sampling here where we covered 250 stations, which is all the blue dots that you can see. And this took us about 15 days to finish, where we started from the north, went south, and then came back again. And we were on the boat all along with all the facilities that I already spoke to you about. So what happened is we generated, or we tried to generate, very brief information that's there. And if you are into biological sciences, you'll be knowing that this information is very, very fundamental. This is basic metagenomics, and we used the Oxford nanopore technology to generate this information. Now, when I say about the ONT, or the Oxford nanopore technology, if you belong to a lab which has been doing research for a while, you'll be knowing that this is a facility which is very easily available everywhere in any good lab. You have easy access to the instrument, you can run it on the field, in fact. But this is an instrument which is just about getting popular in India. And the facility is still restricted to the rich labs because there's so much technicalities with the instrument coming, with the kits coming in for you to do the sampling. So this is still technology which is seldom available to the Indian researchers to get information out of. So why do we really take this extensive effort in doing sampling? So there's a lot of information being exchanged at the top level where we fear that there are organisms which are fast adapting and becoming pathogenic in nature in this ecosystem. And we really need to be mentally and ecologically prepared to combat this kind of event. And what we did in fact see through this research was that we are getting a very wide profile of actibiotic resistance that is there, that stays in this ecosystem. And given the global climate changes, this could any day become pathogenic and cause havoc within the human population. What was also happening is that these are rivers that we bank on for our daily livelihood. And we are seeing that there's a steady increase or bioaccumulation of metals in these waters. So much so that this could actually cause rapid eutrophication, and that could completely change nutrient cycling in these ecosystems. So where does DEIJ really fit into all of this? So as I told you before, that this is the first baseline information from the ONT looking at metagenomics that we generated in this ecosystem. And so this is not to downgrade anybody, and there was a lot of input in the paper, and we are very, very appreciative of all the people who did this job. It's really thankless. But then again, looking at it strictly from a scientific point of view, all of this makes sense. It makes sense to look at more samples because that could give us a wider information. It could make sense of doing filtration in the field. It could obviously make sense to not use a fixative. But if you now put all of these points into the background context that I did speak about, you'll realize that I have no scope of collecting more samples because I'm doing all of this manually under very limited resources. I have no scope of doing filtration in the field. I don't have electricity to run a pump, and I cannot do gravitation filtration because my filter paper is going to get clogged immediately given the high SPM in this ecosystem. And of course, I would love to not fix my samples, but I have no option but to use absolute ethanol to fix these, because from my first point of sample collection, by the time my samples are back into lab, 15 to 20 days have passed. So these are all technical needs that have been built into the research given the situation that we work in. So what I'm trying to really say here is that as we look at research coming from different places on the planet, we need to be more aware of the context in which this research is being conducted. And we need to be more sensitive towards the goals of the researchers who are reporting this information. So as I'm sure, and this is a very sensitive topic, and I like to really be cautious when I use the terms, but there's a large divide between the global South and the global North. And I've been working for some time, and more often than not, when I put my papers into the top journals, it comes back as being told that this is a regional topic, this is not going to affect anybody. What happens in the Sundarbans doesn't concern anybody in the US, right? And I can't help but stop to think to myself that why is the Sundarbans not important where the Columbia estuary is important? What is that we are doing that is not fitting the global South into the more wider perspective? And why is that information generated from the global South not of relevance to everybody around the planet working on these topics? So this is, again, strongly from my own perspective. I really think that there's very little information flow that's happening between the global South and the global North. And there's a lot of information coming from the global North, but there's very limited information flow from the global South to the global North. And of course, there's a difference in perspective. As I told you, we have very limited facilities to do researches. And believe me, I would love to do a mesocosm, but as I told you, it would be impossible to set up a mesocosm experiment in the setup of the Indian Sundarbans. So what I feel is that a lot of this could make more sense if we start to shift our collaborations, if we try to get out of our own comfort zone and try to rope in newer people from different places, maybe whom we don't know, but that could help to include some of the global South researchers, and we should really start looking at the global south as scientific assets, as peers who could be giving us information that will help us broaden the whole knowledge base about ecosystems that are there in the south, or all of the concepts that could possibly also fit in the global north. So what is the difference? So a lot of the points that I'm going to say here is my opinion that has been formed after I attended a very prestigious symposium. And this is my realization post-symposium, that if you notice, if you stop during presentations and listen, you will hear that people from South and Southeast Asia, we generally use the term we when we are presenting, because that's the way that we have been taught that research is more of a team activity. And we are specifically encouraged to not use the term I. So it's always like we did this work in the field, and not like this is my research and this is something that I have done. So this is a very stark difference that I have noticed in presentations happening from probably people in the global north, the US, or in parts of Europe, but this is something that I don't notice in presentations from South and Southeast Asia specifically. And why does that really happen is mainly because we have a very PI-centric world. We have this very strongly built-in hierarchy, which we respect, and we have no issues for it because we have grown up in this setup. We understand that there's somebody supervising and we expect that person to guide us through the entire process. But what this also does is that this discourages some of the independent thoughts that should be there in researchers, that should allow the researcher to speak up, to communicate work without the approval of the PI, if I can use the word. So why is this? So this is, again, a self-realization that when I have new students joining in the lab, I often hear them refer to themselves as PhD students. And I have never heard a person say that I'm a researcher or a scientist, because we still imagine ourselves to be students. And I have a lot of colleagues from different parts of the world, and I've seen that as soon as they are a grad student, they think of themselves as independent researchers who can have an opinion about their own work and who can design experiments, and they can execute the experiment without the PI constantly breathing down their neck and telling them what needs to be done and what does not need to be done. So where does ASLO really come in when all of this is happening? As you've heard Roxane speak, ASLO has taken a very conscious stance in which the entire board or people involved in ASLO realize the need for having a platform where everybody feels comfortable to speak. And more importantly, nobody at ASLO is trying to fix anything. We are not trying to overcompensate for the issues that are there. We are just trying to make things even. We are trying to tell people that your science is important, and I'm not giving you an opportunity to speak just because you come from a certain part of the world. And that was the main motivation behind starting the Amplifying Voices series. And we'll be very happy when people put in applications. Please use the link to put in your abstracts so that we get to hear about what you're doing. And here, going back, I really need to thank Hans-Peter Grosset, who has been a solid support through all of this process, where he has single-handedly stood and told us what is important, and he has encouraged us to speak, and he has repeatedly told us that what we are saying is important and that we should not shy away from speaking our minds. So this is the context in which the Amplifying Voices series takes place, and this special webinar is happening today. And I'll again want to thank ASLO for giving me this opportunity to interact with all of you. Thank you. I'll be very happy to take questions. Please do follow us on Twitter. We're trying to do our bit. And all of the work that I told you about, we have a time series down in Sundarbans, and you can access the information through the site. And we'll be happy to share more information and collaborate as and when people have questions. Thank you. Yeah, I think we can, yes, please, we'd be happy to take the questions.
Dr. Ghosh, thank you very much for this presentation. And this was really informative for me. I serve as an associate editor for LNO. And this issue of regionality and is the work of interest to the broad readership of LNO is key to decision making. And in my experience, rarely ever is a manuscript rejected based on the topic alone. And maybe I don't see it at my level. Maybe the editor-in-chief makes those decisions beforehand. But I will think about this deeply, and I don't have an answer right now, but I think we need to think about, often papers are published when there's a single species in a single tube, and that can be a novel contribution. And the key really is, how is this research from the Columbia River or anywhere else, how is that not a first observation, but a novel observation that has broad impacts? And phrasing any research as such would be key to getting published in LNO. But that is in no way saying that what you pointed out rightfully doesn't happen. And it definitely, your presentation has definitely made an impact on me. So thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you. Roxane, please.
So Anwesha, I have two questions. So I'm going to start first I want an acknowledgement. Lovely presentation. I think you presented challenges that we need to address. I was just reading it this morning. I'll put it on the forum, Leslie, about we want to move towards open science, but that is going to create even more divisions between North and South if we're not careful. So we can do it poorly. So we have to really, create those equitable opportunities and respect some of the challenges that are going on in Global South. So I think you articulated it really wonderfully, but also you're doing kick-ass work. So congratulations. And so I had a question, and particularly within the context of how you framed where you're working. Second largest delivery of fresh waters to the ocean. Are you kidding me? And probably the most densely populated place, so, and so much stuff is going in there. You were just showing those cocktails. So, you presented relative proportions of these different elements and constituents. So what are the relative amounts, but what are the absolute concentrations, and how does that compare to other places in the world? And, we really got to protect those vegetated spaces, which are, behind you at the moment, to help detoxify this cocktail going through. So can you put those concentrations more into context for me, please?
There are three elements that we are particularly right now concerned about. One is arsenic, mercury, and lead, where the concentrations change very rapidly, very fast. And if you put it in the frame of the global average values that we know from comparable ecosystems, it is higher for the Indian Sundarbans. But I can only say this if I have literally clocked the concentrations throughout the day, because you are seeing such rapid changes that's happening. There's tides coming in twice daily. You're seeing a tidal difference in amplitude of about 7 meters, and that's happening so fast. And so the reason why we did so many stations was that even within a short distance of 200 meters, we have seen a wide difference in concentrations, all right? Even as something, you'll understand if I put it in terms of values of salinity. There's a site that I sampled which has a salinity 25, and just 500 meters away, there's a site which is salinity 5. Why? Because it has groundwater seepage. And it's only because we were fortunate to catch that site that we know that this is happening. So of course, if there's a groundwater seepage that can change salinity so rapidly, you can understand what it might be doing to the metal profile. But then again, this information can be said accurately with the more amount of effort that we put in trying to sample all of these areas. But yeah, as of right now, our major concern is with arsenic, lead, and mercury, where the average concentrations are way higher than the permissible limits, and they're also way higher than what we see in the rest of the globe.
Thank you, thank you. So my next question is in response to, the challenges between global North science and global South science. And many years ago, I had the privilege of working on this large global sustainability program called Future Earth. IMBER, I know you're part of IMBER, and IMBER is one of the core projects. And in my own awakening through that experience, one thing I found is that the global South does the social ecological interface better than anybody else, right? And so
I completely agree with you.
Yeah, and I think it'd be really fantastic to hold these conversations and for ASLO to embrace this interface moving forward in terms of scientific publications, in terms of trying to create fora around that. And there, I truly believe we can perhaps create those better synergies to elevate all. So I just, if you could comment to, because you put the contact of your place to people. And I think this is really powerful.
Thank you again, Roxane, for those words. And I think the current research that I'm doing is very, so we choose to put it in a more global context and a more socio-economic context, because when we request for funds, we always try to keep a media component where we try to communicate with the science journalists, where we try to tell them how this work is beyond our scientific community only. And we try to use terms which, if I am telling you, you would understand, or somebody coming from some other field of science would be able to understand, and they can go back and think to themselves that I might not be sitting here in the Indian Sundarbans, but how is whatever happening in the Sundarbans going to affect me if I'm in any other part of the world? And that's where it really comes in. And when we try to use terms, for example, a primary concern with the Indian Sundarbans is the sea level rise. But as scientists, we also know that we are seeing a sea level rise, which is much higher than anywhere else on the planet, because the tectonic plate is also moving down at the same time. So these are things that when we communicate to our policymakers, to our forest officials, to the government, these become very, very important. And hence, I think the Global South essentially always tries to put research in the context of a socio-economic perspective.
Thanks so much.
Pat, you have your hand up?
Oh, yes, sure. First, what a fabulous presentation. And also Leslie as well, what a great hour this has been. Have you thought about putting some of these thoughts about the discrepancies you've seen in reviews and all of the thoughts that you conveyed to us in the second part of your talk in an essay that would go in the bulletin, or perhaps in Letters? I know Letters has had articles on how to write a review, but this is a completely different way of thinking about reviews. And I know I've struggled with reviews both as on the editorial side, as well as a writer, as a reviewer, as an author, and you're struggling with papers that are international, but also, so I think conveying some of these issues really is important. And how we teach our students to write reviews, it's more than just commenting on, you know, the missing, the misspelled word on line 642 or whatever. You know, it's, I think people get so deep into the minutia, but seeing these big pictures and really understanding the cultural differences of where people come from in writing reviews, receiving reviews, I think this is really important, really important.
Patricia, thank you again for those words. But I think from the place that I belong to, this has only developed because I have been encouraged to develop these thoughts. And everybody that I was working with, for example, Hans-Peter or Rox, they never went down and said that, don't say this doesn't look good. It doesn't look good if it's coming from the perspective of being a EC member of ASLO. So I think that kind of support system is very, very important if we want to inculcate these thoughts and if we want to really be able to speak about this and feel comfortable, and then, you know, not fear being shunted out because I have spoken out loud. So I think that is a very important support system that has come from the both of them. And I really appreciate that they've done this for us, at least for the EC committee. Yes.
Thanks, Anwesha. I think that's it's. I think Rox should have her heart warmed by that, because she has worked really hard to make sure that we all understand ASLO to be a welcoming community and a belonging, a place where you belong, right? And so I think it's great that that is actually coming through that way. This is, I think, a good topic for us to keep talking about, or, you know, I think that this is something that we should keep active in our as ASLO, as a scientific society, because it goes into decolonization of science. And, you know, it's just the different contexts in which science works, when accepting that there isn't just the one right way to do it that somebody wrote 100 years ago. It is the bottom of the hour. I do not know how much we want to keep at this, in the sense that I think we're running out of time now, but I really do hope that this is the beginning of the conversation and that we will continue to have some more thoughts on this.
And finally, thank you everyone for coming, participating, and speaking your truth. And I really want to thank both Leslie and Anwesha for really engaging us in a fabulous, fabulous hour. Congratulations to both of you. And thank you, Ajit, and to Hans-Peter for your undying support of all that we're trying to do. Thank you so much, everyone. I wish you a great day.